It's me, it's TRG, the Ramblin Gambler. As always, focused on the grind, even when it's all on the line. In the constant pursuit of excellence of execution in all aspects of casino gambling. This is episode 46 of our Casino Kombat podcast. The podcast crack legal staff says we need a disclaimer, so let's do that and get things started. Ladies, gentlemen, non-binary persons, all the ships at sea. This podcast discusses casinos and gambling. Do not gamble with money you cannot afford to lose. Do not gamble with money you need to pay your bills. My past performances are not indicative of anyone's future results, including my own. If you have a gambling problem, contact your local problem gambling hotline. If you do not know your local problem gambling hotline number, send an email to help@casinokombat.com. We will find that number for you. We will make it available to you. Everything I'm going to share with you in this podcast is based in fact. Names and dates have been altered to protect the innocent and the guilty. Minor items unrelated to outcomes may be omitted in the interest of brevity and clarity. Welcome to episode 46, everyone. We are, of course, going to have travel and VIP lounge segments today, as we always do. Travel should be quick, just one trip last week to report the results on. And our VIP lounge segment is focused on a special mascot that has developed a following at the Wynn Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. I also have a moment of casino wisdom for you where we're going to revisit casino wisdom's numbers 7 and 99 from a very practical point of view. And in the core concept segment today, I want to illustrate why selecting wagers with a low house advantage and using a wagering system with progressive and regressive components is essentially to successfully gambling for a profit. And I'm going to do that by sharing my experiences with two players this week who selected high house advantage wagers and kept their bets basically the same during their entire session while I was playing with them. So that's what we're going to do. Let's get started with that core concept segment right away. One of our core concepts is to make wagers where the house has a very small advantage over us. Blackjack and Baccarat being very good examples of that type of wager. One of our other core concepts is to use a wagering system with both progressive and regressive components, which is to say a wagering system where we increase or decrease the amount wagered on the next hand based on outcomes from previous hands. I've showed you a couple of different wagering systems that implement those ideas. I've said in the past that if we're going to make wagers with a very small house advantage, we are very close to betting on the results of a coin toss. If we are betting on coin tosses, and we always bet the same amount, which is called flat betting, it's difficult to leave the table up more than just one unit, which would also mean leaving the table when you're only down one unit. It's tough for me to see a way to gamble for profit without changing my bets to larger and smaller amounts for that reason. I see people mostly flat betting on a fairly regular basis. But I played with two of them this week, and rather than blend that observation into the travel segment, I wanted to put a bit more focus on this topic and discuss it through the lens of the core concepts of Casino Kombat. So to set the stage, I was playing blackjack with two other people. Let's call them Sid and Nancy. Sid had a top-tier player's card, so he's a regular gambler with this brand. And Nancy was wearing several items with expensive brand logos on them. Both of them seemed to know basic strategy at an above-average level, not perfect, not close to perfect, but solid B- skills in that regard. To me, they both appeared to be experienced players who played blackjack frequently and, quite frankly, for larger amounts than I currently am playing for. But their wager selection and amounts wagered were a mess from my point of view. Sid was consistently making a $25 wager on blackjack and a pair of $10 wagers on two different side bets. I checked the odds on the side bets after I finished playing for the day, and the first had a house advantage of almost 20%, and the other had a house advantage of 24%. Now we're going to compare that, of course, to the advantage of the house on blackjack, which is roughly 0.3 something percent. So 20 and 24% versus 0.03 something percent. Bottom line, any benefits from the low house advantage blackjack bet is completely offset with almost the same amount wagered on two bets with significantly higher house advantages. Sid's bets never changed the entire time we played. Same pattern, same wagers. Nancy was very similar. She played with about $30 on her main bet, $15 on one side bet, and $5 on another. So a total of $50 a hand. She did have an added quirk that I'll tell you about in just a second, but let me tell you how things went before we got to her quirk. As I always do, and as I always recommend to anyone who asks, I bought in for 10 units, a considerably smaller amount than either Sid or Nancy bought in with. I played at this table with them for several hours with just that amount of money, and actually left with some of it. I kept going from being up 3 units to being down 3 units, often dropping down because of a double or a split that didn't fall my way, and then gradually working my way back up, and then dropping back down again. And I was never up enough to start thinking about leaving. So I was just playing, waiting for my positive or negative exit to happen, and watching Sid and Nancy play. Now, obviously, I didn't keep records, but they appeared to be winning and losing about the same number of blackjack hands. That seemed to be going as the math would indicate. And also, as the math would indicate, they occasionally won a small amount on the side bets. But most of the time, they just made their side bets, and then the money was collected and taken from them. So because of the type of bets they decided to make, and the amount they decided to wager on the bets they decided to make, as I played with the same money I bought in with the entire time, and despite the fact that my buy-in amount was roughly half of what each of them bought in with, they continued to lose everything on the table, pull out more money, lose all of that, pull out more money, and lose that, until Sid had lost a couple of $1,000s and he left. Nancy was a bit more creative. As she reached her 4th buy-in, she started randomly playing 2 hands, same pattern, and then dropping back to 1 hand. So she'd go from $50 on 3 wagers to $100 on 6 wagers. And this, to me, looks like a desperate attempt to get better cards. Not sure why people think that's possible or think that changes anything, but people do think that. What did that actually do for her? What did the move to 2 hands actually do for her? Again, the math says the blackjack wager itself is basically a coin toss. So what happened? Just what you'd think. Most of the time, she'd win a hand at $30, and she'd lose a hand at $30, and she'd benefited from that process in no way, shape, or form, and she'd also lost $40 that she had spread across 4 high house advantage wagers. Even if she won both blackjack hands, and she lost all 4 of the other wagers, she made less than 1 unit profit for the pair of hands, and that's because of how much capital the side bets were eating up. I didn't ask. Asking losing gamblers questions related to why they lost is just never a good idea in my experience. But what I wondered, what I wanted to ask, what I wanted to know was this. If you're down $1,500, how do you get to a profit with a wager of $25 on blackjack that never changes? Are you hoping, are you really truly hoping, thinking, planning to win 60 more hands than you lose from this moment going forward? Because that's what it's going to take. Ignoring the money you are going to lose on the side bets, and that's going to happen because the way you're betting, you need to win 60 more blackjack hands than you lose over the period of time you gamble from the moment of that next buy-in forward, just to get back the money you started with. And then you need to win more to cover all the side bets that you're going to lose along the way on that journey. Now, sure. Look, we all have to admit that it's possible that we can flip a coin and have it land on heads 60 times in a row. But it seems really, really improbable that that's going to happen. The only thing to me that seemed to give either of them any hope would have been if they managed to win one of the very large payouts on the side bet. The one side bet did pay $299 to 1 if both of the players' first 2 face-up cards and the dealer's face-up card were all the same value in suit. So 3 8 of hearts, and Sid would have won $2,990 and actually had a profit for the day. But otherwise, the smaller payout, something paying even 100 to 1, that only gets you part way to even. And you're either then going to go, well, that's the best of it, I'm going to take this loss, or you're going to continue to gamble and make those side bets from a position of disadvantage, hoping to catch another one of these side bets that's very unlikely to pay out. Gabriel's made the comment to me several times that you see things like this and you want to say something. You want to say, hey, I know this podcast. It can help you. It can help you avoid days like this. Here's the name of this podcast. It can help. And he's right. It's tough to not say something when I'm in these situations. But I don't. It wouldn't be received well, and I just keep my question to myself, and I keep the thought that, hey, we could help you if you were interested, to myself, and I hope they stumble across our little corner of the internet at some point and have an opportunity to have a better chance to gamble and gamble and make a profit. Next, we have a moment of casino wisdom. Casino wisdom number 7 teaches us to be accountable to someone or something. And the most important of casino wisdoms, number 99, teaches us that if we don't know our numbers, we don't know our gambling. I'm accountable to Gabriel, to Mrs. TRG, and all of you. And the reason I can be accountable is because I know my numbers. And I know my numbers because I keep detailed records of almost every casino transaction. So I thought today I'd talk about which things I do and do not keep track of, maybe give you some ideas on things you might want to track in your own gambling journey. And of course, if you think I'm missing something, I'd be happy to hear your ideas on things you track that I don't. Currently, I'm tracking money won from free slot play that I'm given. I'm tracking the amount won or lost at baccarat, blackjack, craps, roulette slots, or video poker. Note that I track money won from free slot play separately from money won when I put money at risk playing slots. 2 different categories for me. I track beverage comps, but only if I'm given a voucher for a drink when drinks would normally have to be purchased. If I'm in Las Vegas, I'm not putting in the effort to price and record every free drink someone hands me. Likewise, I'm not tracking that at Casino 2, my home casino, now that they are comping drinks. Don't forget that if you figure out the actual name of my home casino from clues given in the podcasts, you can join Golden Fan, Master of Details, and Keeper of Wisdom as a member of the Inner Circle. And I'll send you a one-of-a-kind custom t-shirt or polo as a prize and recognition that you played the game and solved the puzzle. I also track food comps, parking comps, and room comps. For room comps, I normally use the amount that they are renting the room for to anyone just booking through the hotel website. I do occasionally get other comps or partial comps like the My Vegas coupon that I use to get a discount on a flight to the Grand Canyon. I just record those in a category called Other as a positive number. It's something I got or won or earned, so it's a positive number. Things I spent or lost are negative numbers. I track gifts received with a description and a quick look on Amazon to determine what I would pay for the gift that I was just given. If I can't find the exact items, I find the closest match I can and I move forward. I keep track of the free slot play, free bets, and match bets that I'm given. I don't track the cost of fuels or tolls as expenses related to gambling. For me, it seems like more trouble than it's worth. I don't bother with tracking the discount I get for fuel as a comp either, so that kind of balances things out a little bit. I use a category called expenses to track tips given to bartenders and servers. I don't bother tracking the tips I give dealers since those are always done with chips that I've won. Those get accounted for because I record the amount won or lost based on the amount that I leave the table with. So those tips are in that number, just not tracked and recorded separately. I'm sure I'm not tipping away my wins, so I don't need to know how much I tipped and then add it back into or subtract it from the final number. The final number is good enough for me for each table. I've considered on several occasions putting in the time and effort to track points earned versus time spent gambling. But every time I try, it just ends up being tedious, and then I don't really find the information useful or interesting or informative or helpful after I've put in the effort. So I don't do that. So that's my list. If you have not decided for yourself what you're going to track in your own gambling, I encourage you to sit down for a few minutes and decide what you want to document during your own gambling. Your list may be different than mine, or may be very similar. But that's the interesting part about it. It's not about do it exactly the way I do it. It's do the thing that I do because I found it useful to me. And you'll find your own things that you want to track. Your own things that you value within the casino gambling space. All right. So you know I did some gambling last week. It's been 40-some weeks since I didn't do some gambling. So let's discuss those results in the travel segment. Last week I did the west and north from my house route, still trying to get that northern area to open up more for me in terms of particularly room comps, but comps and gifts. The free plays coming along a little bit at the MGM property. So I went a couple hours to the west, to the My Choice property, and I'm honestly going to consider taking this one off the route on some of these trips. The free bet I had available to me was very small, almost not worth the 5 minutes it took to get off the highway and park. To compound things, they only had 3 seats of 3-2 blackjack, and after a 20-minute wait for a seat, I played the free bet on black on roulette and lost and left after playing one slot machine and losing a very small amount. I then headed north about an hour to an MGM resort. I had a nice size free bet there, as I mentioned. Unfortunately, I had 2 losing blackjack tables where I played for an extended period of time, never getting anywhere near a win that would have allowed me to plan an exit, and eventually taking a small loss at East. I had a small win on a slot machine as well. Next up was a 5-minute drive to a My Choice casino. My efforts here are starting to pay off. I got a full set of offers for this property for next month. It includes gifts, free slot play, and an offer to call for a discounted room rate. They were doing a 2 times tier credit promotion as well, so that helps. That's beneficial. And I had, again, this nice long session at a blackjack table and ended up taking a very small loss. And never won more than 3 units and never had a chance to look at setting up an exit with a win. I had another winning slot machine, however. I actually finished up at the 3rd casino in the area, which is just 5 minutes from the other 2. And despite the fact that they are not part of a national rewards system and that I'm not really working their reward system hard and haven't been there in a long time, they offered me the best rate on a partial comp on a room, and I had some free slot play available there as well. I didn't do much gambling there. I arrived later in the early evening, got some food with a food comp they gave me, and then because it was later and because it was evening shift, the table limits were higher and the tables were crowded. I played my free slot play. I had a winning slot machine play on top of that, and I called it a night and wrapped things up. I'd honestly had enough casino for one day at this point. Imagine that. TRG actually reached a point where he'd had enough casino after 4 of them and was ready to call it a night. So let's bottom line it. For the week, since this was the only gambling of the week that I did, I finished minus a day and a half's pay. Not horrible. Kind of thing that could be fixed in one table. I just never had a chance to leave a table with a win. Lots of that grind and keeping the losses low on this trip. A lot of grind and a lot of keeping the losses low on this trip. And let me very quickly point out that while I didn't win enough from slots to offset the blackjack losses, I did have 3 winning slot machines and only 1 losing slot machine on this trip. So that's my slot strategy, providing points and profits. If you'd like a copy of my ebook, which explains how I play slot machines in detail, drop me an email via trg@casinomkombat.com, spell combat with a K, of course, and put 2 words in the subject line: slot tactics. Fred the email bot will send you a link to download a copy for free. And I mean free, 100% free. I don't have anything to sell you, so I'm not going to offer to sell you anything. Also, since I mentioned Fred, T-Rex and I upgraded him last week. If you send me an email with the 2 words "Get Wisdom" in the subject line, Fred will send you a link to download the official Keeper of Wisdom's approved list of casino wisdoms and the episode number where they were first discussed. Okay, let's adjourn to the VIP lounge for some sips and a story. Well, an observation, perhaps more than a story. A fun anecdote. But come on, let's finish up the way we always do.
Oh, a little bit of the bubbly.
Welcome to our virtual VIP lounge. You know I always stock it with the best of every virtual wine, beer, and spirits, as well as fancy waters and soft drinks. If you're not listening in the car, I encourage you to pour yourself something to enjoy with me. I'm having an IPA from a local brewery today. Billy with the great last name came across something in the online space a couple of weeks ago that we found fun and interesting. And it's the kind of thing that I can imagine sharing with my friends Jack and Lady Di that I often used to see once a week or so at the VIP lounge in my local casino. They were regular Las Vegas goers, and we'd always swap stories about the strange and interesting things that we learned about Las Vegas. So I thought, since I've not seen them in over a year, I'd share this with you today. What Billy found online was a person posting a picture of a feral cat under a lamp on a path at the Wynn Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. And the person who posted it was asking if anyone had seen this cat since things reopened. It seems they always used to see this cat when they walked that particular path almost every visit. They were concerned that something had happened to the cat. Well, then the gambling community got involved. All those online that I talked about, those allies that I always talk about, people quickly started saying they knew that cat and posting their pictures of that cat in the same area. Sure enough, a couple days later, someone posted a picture of the cat, a current recent picture of the cat. They had gone to the Wynn, walked the path several times over several days to see if they could find the cat and determine its status. The cat was fine, still living its best life at the Wynn in Las Vegas, pandemic or no pandemic. So that's a quirky story from the wider world of gambling for this week. If you're playing the casino chip game, there are lucky number 7 in this episode of the podcast. Please tip your waitresses, tip your bartenders, tip your dealers, but don't tip away your wins. I have spoken. Everything you heard here is true from a certain point of view. It's time for leaving, and I hope you understand I was born a Ramblin' Man. Love it, hate it, it don't matter. Please share with your family and friends. Goodbye, folks. Thanks for listening.